There's a glance, just a blink, but everything changes. You're speaking with someone, and suddenly you see it clearly, the falseness in their smile, the calculation behind every compliment. You no longer feel awkward or try to rationalize. You just know one thing for sure. You've seen through them, and they know it too. That you know. No need to shout, no need to expose. Just a quiet awakening, but in that moment, you've entered a battle without declaring war. In a world where sweet words often mask dark intentions, the most precious thing you have isn't confrontation, it's clarity. Clarity about yourself, your boundaries, and the things you'll no longer ignore. Stoicism doesn't teach you to retaliate. It teaches you to remain still, not from weakness, but because you no longer need to react. Awareness is a weapon. Wakefulness is freedom. When you are no longer led by flattery or manipulated emotions, you begin to live from within. And that's when all power games lose their grip. Now, let's face 6 familiar tactics that deceitful people use to stay in control and how a Stoic walks through each of them without losing himself. 1. They rewrite the story, and you become the villain. They don't lash out. They don't strike back immediately. They just fall silent for a few seconds, then begin to retell everything. Only now, in a different light. A story in which you're not the one awake, not the one who dared to face the truth, but the one who overreacted, who read too much into things, who couldn't control their emotions. They don't outright lie. They simply suggest a new version where you are the problem. They speak with concern in their voice, sorrow in their eyes, as if they're merely sharing a worry with someone. But right in that moment, they begin rewriting reality. This is the first stage in the manipulator's power game, a weapon so subtle that if you're not fully awake, you'll start doubting yourself. They don't need proof, they just need to plant a seed of doubt. She's been a bit sensitive lately. I think something must have triggered that reaction. I really want to help, but it's hard when someone won't open up. These lines aren't entirely false, but they serve a purpose. To make you the issue, to turn you from the one who saw the truth into the one who disrupted peace. What makes this tactic effective is that it preys on the very virtue of kind people. Most of us, when facing conflict, don't want to be seen as the one who overreacted. We want to be calm, fair, and slow to judge. And that integrity becomes the gap they exploit. You begin to wonder, am I being too sensitive? Maybe I misunderstood. I don't want to cause drama, so is staying quiet the better way? But stop right there. Because that's how you begin to step away from the truth and enter confusion. That's when you feel the need to justify what you clearly saw. When you start to lose faith in your own intuition just because someone else tells a better story. I once watched this happen to a close friend. She realized her boyfriend had long used gentleness as a tool of control. When she began setting boundaries and asking questions, he didn't respond in anger. He simply told mutual friends that she was going through a rough patch, that he worried about her, but she wouldn't open up. Within weeks, she noticed her once close friends pulling away. No one said anything directly, but their eyes changed. Conversations turned cold. She had done nothing wrong, but somehow she had become the suspicious one. And when she told me, what hurt her most wasn't the manipulation. It was the feeling of being misunderstood. The pain of knowing you're telling the truth, yet no one believes you. The helplessness of seeing clearly what's happening, yet being seen as the one causing trouble. This is why Stoic philosophy matters. Not because it teaches you to rise above or defeat your enemies, but because it offers you a quiet weapon, inner steadiness. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If someone can prove me wrong, I will gladly change, but if not, I will continue on my path." That's not stubbornness. That's the courage to live in truth, even when others don't understand it. You don't need to react. You don't need to rush to defend yourself or reclaim your voice. Sometimes, reacting is the trap, because the more you try to prove your truth, the more you get pulled into the story they're crafting, and in that story, your role has already been written. Instead, remain still, not in passive silence, but in purposeful clarity. You don't need to win the war of words, you only need to win over yourself. Don't let emotion drag you away from the truth. Don't let the fear of being misunderstood make you abandon what you saw with full awareness. Stoicism doesn't teach you to avoid conflict by pretending not to see. It teaches you to hold your truth without being dragged into someone else's script. Not everyone will understand you. Not everyone will stand by you, but truth does not require a crowd. It only requires that you do not betray it. And if you've ever been made the villain in someone else's story, remember this. Time will separate the true from the false. Actions will expose words, and character will always shine brighter than any cleverly told tale. You are not responsible for how others tell the story. You are responsible only for how you live. And sometimes, living with truth is the strongest response you can choose. 2. Pretending nothing ever happened. The game of intentional forgetting. Sometimes, danger doesn't come from an explosion, but from silence. Not all manipulators react with anger or insults when you see through them. Some choose to return as if nothing ever happened. No apology, no explanation, no acknowledgement, just a simple message. Hope you've been well. A harmless comment on a post. A gentle presence so subtle that it leaves you questioning whether you imagined it all. This isn't forgetfulness, it's strategy. A kind of harmless return masked in civility, yet loaded with calculation. They're not looking to resolve the issue, they're looking to bypass it, not for reconciliation, but to see whether you'll return to your old role. Easy to forgive, easy to bend, easy to overlook. And if you respond, if you speak again as if nothing happened, then in their eyes, that's a victory. I once heard a friend describe such a situation. She had ended a relationship with a male colleague, someone who appeared kind but mocked her behind her back. After she set firm boundaries, he disappeared. No explanation. But weeks later, he returned with a short email. Wishing you a good week. Hope all is well. No mention of the past. No touch on the hurt. Just a seemingly polite greeting. And suddenly, she was caught in silence, asking herself, should I reply? Has he changed? Or am I just being too tense? That's when the mind begins to wrestle with itself. A part of you wants to believe maybe it wasn't that serious. Another part warns, if you tolerate silence, you may be accepting the refusal to take responsibility. And the manipulator knows this. They know you dislike conflict, that you don't want to hold grudges, that you fear being seen as cold. That's why they don't apologize, they test. They don't repair, they check whether your guard is still up. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Tranquility comes when you accept what has happened and stop demanding it to be otherwise." That doesn't mean pretending you weren't hurt. It means you don't let the hurt distort your clarity. When someone returns with unearned friendliness, you are not unkind for keeping your distance. That is self-respect. Because peace cannot be rebuilt on the soil of denial. Manipulators won't say it aloud, but they are watching. Every response from a short message to a "haha" under a post is being weighed. They don't need full reconciliation, they just need a crack to slip through. And if you yield once, they believe you'll yield again. Not through pressure, but through familiarity. Not through force, but through normalization. It's a subtle performance. They don't deny what happened, but they won't face it either. They don't say, "I'm sorry." They say, "Everything's fine now, right?" And you begin to wonder, am I just being stubborn? Should I forgive so I can feel at peace? Forgiveness is a personal act, but pretending you weren't hurt is a trap. Forgiveness doesn't ask you to forget. It doesn't ask you to reopen the door to someone who broke your trust. Forgiveness is not an invitation to return, it's an internal release. You can forgive, let go of resentment, and still keep your boundaries. That's not bitterness, it's maturity. A Stoic doesn't react on impulse. They observe. They ask, what's really happening here? Is my response coming from reason or from a desire for peace? Epictetus reminded us, we are not disturbed by events, but by the view we take of them. If you see the sudden return as an act of peace, you may lower your guard, but if you see it as denial of consequence, you'll remain steady in vigilance. This isn't a call to sever all ties, it's a reminder. Don't call it peace when all you're doing is avoiding the truth. Because if a relationship requires silence to continue, it's not healing, it's suppression. True calm doesn't come from denying the past, but from seeing it, accepting it, and choosing to live on without letting it redefine your worth. When someone who hurt you returns without taking responsibility, you have every right not to respond. And that doesn't make you the bad person. It makes you the clear one. Remember, not everyone who returns has changed. Some return just to see if you've weakened. And when you stay silent, don't react. Don't slip back into the old role. They'll be confused. But you'll feel strong. Because you've chosen peace with roots, not harmony with conditions. And in a world where deception grows more subtle, guarding your boundaries even in silence is already an act of inner strength. 3. They destroy you in the dark, but keep their perfect image. Not everyone has the courage to wage war openly, especially the subtle manipulators. When they realize they can no longer control you, that you no longer fall into their emotional traps, they don't scream. They don't slam the table. They don't say you're wrong. They simply vanish from view, then quietly begin the attack from behind. And that's exactly what makes it dangerous. No one warns you. No one tells you the war has begun. You just feel something shifting. The glances in your circle grow colder. The conversations no longer revolve around you. Invitations quietly disappear. There's no confrontation, no accusation. You simply become a stranger to those who once stood close. The reason? Because someone, the one you dared to walk away from, is rewriting your image in the minds of others. I once witnessed this when a close colleague distanced herself from a toxic and disrespectful working relationship. She didn't make a scene. She simply disengaged and set clear boundaries. But not long after, the same people who once chatted with her began to avoid her, acting strangely distant. A trusted friend in the group revealed, "Someone said she's been difficult, uncooperative, not in a good place." No one said it directly, it just spread slowly like that. This is a tactic designed to ruin your reputation without confrontation. It doesn't explode, it seeps. And that's why it works. Vague phrases like, "I don't know, I'm just worried about her," or "He's been acting a little off lately," carry the appearance of concern, but in truth, they are weapons. No one wants to oppose someone who appears to be worried for another. And the manipulator knows this. They weaponize goodwill to quietly dismantle you. This strategy succeeds because it targets the part of us most vulnerable, our need for recognition, our reputation. When you're misunderstood indirectly, your instinct is to respond, to clarify, to defend yourself in order to save your image. But that's the moment you step into their game, the game where you're forced to react while they drip-feed doubt like slow poison. Stoic philosophy saw this clearly centuries ago. Seneca once wrote, "Nothing is more noble than a mind that can pass by an offense without being disturbed by it." Not because the Stoic feels no pain, but because they understand. Reacting emotionally is the fastest way to lose yourself. You can't control what others say behind your back, but you can control how you live day by day, action by action, decision by decision. In a world where your name can be distorted through a story told often enough, the only thing you can hold on to is consistency. A manipulator may write a script where you're the villain, but if those around you still see you acting with kindness, integrity, avoiding drama, then eventually the truth will write itself. You don't need to correct every word. You don't need to speak to every rumor. Your role isn't to adjust everyone's perception. Your role is to stay firm on the path you walk. And if that path is truly solid, it won't shake just because of whispers behind you. Don't sacrifice your peace, trying to restore an image in the eyes of those easily swayed. Because true recognition doesn't come from pleasing everyone. It comes from being able to look in the mirror and say, "I've done no wrong." I once saw a friend hold this steady. After being slandered behind her back, she didn't explain herself. She focused on her work, behaved with grace, and avoided gossip. A year later, those who once believed the rumors began to return not with apologies, but with uncertain eyes toward the very things they once trusted. Because words travel fast, but truth takes time. And if you are steadfast, truth will find its way back. Epictetus once said, "Don't try to be a good person, be one." Which means, instead of worrying about how others see you, focus on who you truly are. That not only lightens your spirit, it weakens the power of rumors because there's nothing for them to hold on to. Of course, this isn't easy. Silence can make you angry. Misrepresentation can make you want to scream. But you must ask yourself, what am I fighting for, truth or approval? When you choose to live honestly, you will lose some people, those who prefer a story over their own eyes. But you'll keep something far more important: your self-respect, your peace, and an inner life that cannot be shaken. And you will see, even if they try to paint you as the guilty one, in time, they will be exposed. Because no mask lasts forever. A perfect image cannot forever hide a manipulative soul. And when the cracks appear, the truth of who's who becomes clear. You don't need revenge. You just need to remain unlike them, in silence, in composure, in discipline. That is the greatest victory. 4. The illusion of change, a tactic in disguise. There is a form of manipulation more subtle than accusation or cold silence. It is transformation, not disappearance, but return in a new version, kinder, more understanding, seemingly matured. After every direct tactic has failed, after false stories no longer convince anyone, and after your indifference becomes an impenetrable wall, they change. But not from the inside out. They change their appearance, just enough to make you believe things are different now. The danger lies not in a clumsy act, but in the tiny, calculated details that mirror what you once hoped for. They apologize briefly, imperfectly, but just enough for you to think, at least they tried. They speak of new realizations using the exact phrases you once emphasized during arguments. They bring up things that once hurt you as if they've truly reflected. You don't hear knocking this time. They're already standing before you, gentle, slow, open, and say they want to start over. And you begin to hesitate. You're not foolish. You remember exactly what happened, but you're also human. You want to believe people can change. You want to believe some reunions are worth it. You don't want to close the door forever if someone is truly trying to be better. I've seen this shake even the strongest person. A close friend, after escaping a controlling relationship, left no room for return. She blocked his number, withdrew from every platform, healed quietly. But then, months later, he sent a handwritten letter in the very script she once adored. No cliches, just a story of personal awakening. Attached were photos of therapy prescriptions, pages from the self-help book she had once recommended. A part of her wanted to believe. And eventually, she reopened the conversation. At first, everything seemed different. No more blame, no more sarcasm, no more emotional manipulation, but just a few weeks in, he began checking how quickly she replied to texts. He made subtle jabs at her friends. He questioned why she still needed therapy so much if she was really okay. And she realized he hadn't changed. He'd just become a better actor. A manipulator's remorse is not a path to healing. It's a ticket back into the role where they once had control. They haven't grown. They've upgraded their approach. The new kindness is just a costume, and if you're not truly attentive, you'll believe it's real. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "True acts do not need to be declared, they speak for themselves." That's how you distinguish real change from change with ulterior motives. Those who truly change don't need to announce it. They don't need to prove anything. They don't rush back. They accept if you're not ready, if you need time, if you choose not to offer a second chance. Because true change doesn't face outward, it begins within. Manipulators are different. They can't stand being ignored by you. Not because they love, but because you were once easy to control and now you're not. What bothers them isn't losing you. It's losing their role in your life. And to reclaim that role, they'll start overplaying the person you always wished they were. Epictetus taught, "The trap of emotion is that we stop using reason to evaluate and begin using it to justify." When you start explaining to yourself why you should believe them, why this time might be different, you're justifying something your intuition already knows is wrong. Intuition doesn't argue, it's a subtle stirring in the chest. And if you're still enough, you'll feel it. A Stoic is not cold. They still have compassion, still believe in human potential, but they don't offer trust hastily. They observe. They step back. They let time reveal whether the change will hold. And more importantly, they never feel guilty for maintaining boundaries, even if the other plays the victim or the penitent. If someone once hurt you, then returns with a new face, ask yourself, what are they seeking? Do they need me or the control they once had over me? Forgiveness is a personal choice. But regaining a place in your heart is a privilege not everyone deserves. You're not heartless for keeping your distance. You're not rigid for asking for time. You're not cruel for not believing the first time someone says they've changed. Because true change doesn't need to be declared. It needs to be lived day after day with humility and consistency. If they've truly changed, they'll respect your skepticism. They won't demand forgiveness. They won't push their way back in. They won't rush to fill the space. They'll let time show you that they are no longer who they once were. And if they can't do that, then the only thing that's changed is the tactic. 5. They test your boundaries with a gentleness that feels suspicious. When an apology doesn't soften you, when "I've changed" no longer reopens the old door, when remorse isn't enough to draw you back to where they once held control, they shift course. No more emotional appeals, no more pleas for a second chance. They simply tap gently on the wall you've built. Not to break it, but to see if it's real. Manipulation now comes not through emotional outbursts or healing conversations. It comes through a short message. This song reminded me of you. A photo from the past sent without words. A silent like on your latest post after months of absence. Each act is small, each one easy to overlook, but each serves a purpose. They're not asking to come back, they're checking. Have you truly let go, or are you just pretending to be strong? And if you reply even with a single emoji, they'll know. The door may not be shut. And if you stay silent, they'll try again, this time softer, closer, seemingly more sincere. Bit by bit, they test your boundary like someone gently nudging a door left ajar. I once saw a friend who, after ending a controlling relationship, held firm for nearly 3 months. No contact, no replies, no vague status updates. She was truly committed, but then he sent a message. I know you don't want to hear from me, but it rained today. I remembered how you used to drag me out for walks, even when we'd get soaked. She read it, didn't reply, but that night she couldn't sleep. Not because she wanted him back, but because part of her wondered, am I being too cold? And the next morning, when she replied with a simple, I miss those days too, everything began again, quietly. But the boundary had cracked. The problem isn't the message. It's that you start doubting your own boundary. No one forces you to respond. No one demands your empathy, but their repeated presence wears down your resolve. You don't want to be seen as heartless. You don't want to seem forever distant. You grow tired of playing the cold one. And that's when they return, not with weapons, but with a gentle smile and a slightly open door. Epictetus once said, when someone tests you, it doesn't define them, it defines you. A Stoic understands that boundaries are not declared through grand speeches. They are expressed through consistency, through the behaviors you refuse to repeat, through well-timed silence, and through your refusal to react to signals meant to stir pity, nostalgia, or loneliness. Manipulators know you're a good person. You're compassionate, you honor the past, and most of all, you don't want to hurt anyone. But unless protected by awareness, those virtues become openings. Someone who once disregarded you won't break your door down. They'll just wait for you to forget to lock it. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, there's nothing harsh in protecting your soul. Don't mistake politeness for consent. Don't assume you owe a reply to maintain peace. You owe no response, especially to those who once disrespected you. No reply is not unkindness. Sometimes it's the kindest thing you can do for yourself. There's something many hurt people don't realize. Manipulation doesn't always shout or strike. It often whispers, like water dripping through stone. But if you don't seal the crack, it wears you down. And before you know it, you're right back where you swore you'd never return. I once heard a psychologist say, a manipulator won't break into your home. They'll wait for you to invite them in. And that invitation doesn't always mean throwing the door wide open. Sometimes it's simply not closing it all the way. A single reply, a courteous reaction, one softened moment enough to show them they still have access. So how do you guard your boundary when the invasion is so gentle? How do you stay composed without becoming cold? You need one thing, clarity with yourself. Clarity that your boundary is not a negotiation. That kindness does not mean accepting everything. That no matter how beautiful the past was, if it isn't followed by accountability and genuine change, it becomes a memory easily exploited. Stoicism doesn't ask you to be rigid. It asks you to be deliberate, not reactive but intentional, not defensive but observant. When you see signals being sent your way, don't rush to judge the sender. Ask yourself, what's making me want to reply? longing, loneliness, the fear of being seen as unkind? Or do I truly believe this person has changed? If your reason is rooted in unresolved emotion, your response will only return you to where you once left. But if you are quiet enough to look through the lens of reason, you'll see your silence is not a weapon, but a gate. And once that gate is firm, they'll have no way back in. Not everyone will understand your silence. Not everyone will agree with your lack of reply. But you're not here to please others. You're here to protect the peace you fought so hard to reclaim. And if someone once caused you to lose yourself, the least you can do is never let them try again, even through the softest of messages. 6. If they can't control you, they'll try to control how others see you, when they can no longer provoke a reaction from you. When you no longer fall for their mind games, when all softness, all tests, all memory-laced bait fails, they won't come back to you, not because they've let go, but because they've shifted focus. If they can't control you, they'll aim for the next most powerful thing, your image in the eyes of others. This is the final move of those who have lost personal power. They can no longer reach you directly, so they quietly begin reshaping you in the minds of those around you. Not through harsh slander that's too obvious, too easy to refute. They use softness, they sow doubt, they create a space in others, ready to be filled with a different version of you, distorted, unfamiliar, unstable. They don't say you're a bad person, they simply sigh and say, "I don't know how it came to this. I really tried." They don't accuse, they just pose vague questions. Have you noticed they've been a bit off lately? They don't tear you down. They just appear concerned. And the listener unintentionally begins to write the rest of the story themselves. I once saw this happen in a close friend group. A woman, after leaving a toxic relationship, chose silence. No bad-mouthing, no accusations, just quietly stepped away. But within weeks, her friends grew distant. Invitations stopped. Conversations cooled. One finally told her, "Honestly, he said you were emotionally unstable, so we didn't want to add more pressure." No one checked the facts. Just one sentence, and suddenly she seemed unsteady in the eyes of those who once knew her well. That's how they isolate you, not with violence, but with doubt. They don't need to tear you down. They just need to make others unsure about standing beside you. And once that doubt takes hold, you find yourself alone in your own circle. You don't understand what happened. You don't know what you did wrong. And the most painful part is, you can't even defend yourself because no one's accusing you. They just don't trust you like before. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The only thing that matters is to live rightly and to be patient with those who don't see it yet." What he didn't say, but anyone who lives honestly knows, is that such patience is far from easy. It comes with loneliness, with being misunderstood, with hearing falsehoods said behind your back and knowing you can't defend yourself without compromising your dignity. You don't want to play the reputation game your former opponent started. But you also don't want to see yourself slowly erased from the trust of those you once cared about. And so, you stand before a choice. Rush into battle to defend yourself or stay silent and let time do its work. If you choose the fight, you may become someone you no longer recognize. Defensive, anxious, retelling your story over and over just to be believed. But if you choose silence, you must learn to endure winter without anyone left to warm your trust, relying only on integrity to keep you upright. Stoicism chooses the second path, not because it's easier, but because it's more lasting. Epictetus taught, "You can't control what others say, but you can control how you live." And if that life is consistent, it will refute every lie simply by existing. This is where you learn that the strongest voice is not in your words, but in your way of life. You don't need to go around saying, "I'm not what they say." You just keep being kind, doing good, living rightly, and each day the lies lose weight because nothing in your reality supports them. No one can construct a false version of you if the real one is still standing and standing clearly. Truth doesn't rush. It isn't as alluring as gossip. It doesn't spread as quickly as slander. But it holds what lies never can: endurance. And endurance always outlasts deception if you're patient enough to side with it. I once knew a man who was defamed for a year by a former boss. No statements, no lawsuits, no debates. He simply kept living well, doing honest work, treating others with respect. A year later, those who once believed the lies returned not with apologies, but with eyes full of regret. And he had done nothing except remain steadfast. You can too. If you're being misrepresented in others' eyes, don't rush to restore your name. Let your life be the proof. Let time be the measure. And remember, those who truly know you won't be easily swayed. And those who believe others without hearing from you were never meant to stay. You don't need everyone to understand you. You only need one thing: not to betray yourself because you were misunderstood. The power of the Stoic doesn't lie in defending reputation. It lies in living so rightly no word can destroy it. And if justice does exist in this world, it is this: those who live truthfully will, in the end, be seen not by the masses, but by those who truly matter. I used to think that if I lived kindly, sincerely, and without calculation, others would have no reason to harm me. But then I learned that purity does not make you immune to the most subtle attacks. And sometimes it is that very purity that makes you a target. People don't always seek to control you because you're weak, but because you possess something they don't: independence, awareness, and a self-respect that needs no validation. People like that are not easily manipulated, and therefore they become a threat. But instead of fear, I chose stillness. No retaliation, no hatred. Just a quiet commitment to my own values, because I understand. Truth doesn't need to be defended with shouting, but with steady silence. And no one can distort your image if you're the first to keep your eyes on who you truly are. If you found these reflections helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss future content. Peace does not need to be declared. It only needs you to live in alignment with yourself. See you in the next video.